If you listen closely to what Nissan CEO just said, he has admitted the company is in trouble. Is it too late? Unfortunately, I think it is. Nissan is saying that they're literally shocked by what's happened in the United States. They say they didn't expect Americans would be buying so many electric cars, and they've been caught a bit on the back foot. Now, I think this is crazy. Why is it that people keep underestimating the electric vehicle revolution? I don't understand it. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I'm the Electric Viking. Great to see you. My name's Sam Evans, and I'm coming to you from Melbourne in Australia. Yesterday, I dropped Shanna off at the airport to go to get her cancer treatment. She's got level 4, stage 4 cancer. Doctors here in Australia basically said there wasn't much chance of survival, very little in fact. They seem to be very, very non-positive about her chances. We found some doctors overseas that believe the Australian diagnosis of her condition, of the multiple places where the cancer spread to. They say that they think the doctors here in Australia got it wrong. They think that it is curable. It's not incurable, but I don't know for sure. So what we did is we found out the costs, and they were massive. Decided to sell the house, and then somebody said, make a GoFundMe campaign. So based on those recommendations, in fact, that came from my Patreon supporters on this channel here, I did that. And you guys came together, and you basically saved the day. That's true. So now we can afford the treatment, and she's already receiving it. In fact, it started 2 hours ago. I just want to say a big thank you. Thank you so much. Now, if anyone is asking you in the comment sections of any of my videos, donate here, click this button here, any of that garbage, pretending to be me, I'm sorry. I've tried to delete these idiots, but unfortunately they keep on coming back. These scammers are just, I don't know, professionals. That was all they do is try to scam people, which sucks. But yeah, don't click on anything there unless it's actually in our description, our official video description. Don't click on any links that are in the comments sections. Nissan, are they taking electrification seriously? Well, they did just release the Nissan Ariya, or Ariya, or however you want to pronounce it, which is not a bad electric vehicle. It's quite heavy for the actual size of the car. That's one reason I personally really like Tesla's vehicles. They're very light based on the size of the vehicle. And I know people think that I'm a Tesla fanboy for saying that, but it is unfortunately just a fact. The lighter the vehicle is, the more efficiency you're going to get, the less issues you're going to get. For example, if you drive a big SUV, the weight of those vehicles seems to cause a lot more reliability concerns, a lot more things where you got to replace discs, and everything just seems to wear out quicker. So I think having a lighter vehicle is a big advantage. I mean, Nissan didn't try to make a heavy vehicle. You can't really blame them, to be honest. They're sort of in that boat with most automakers, struggling to bring out a lighter weight electric vehicle. Now, in terms of Nissan's actual electric car production, they used to be one of the biggest in the world. Now, obviously, they are no longer, not even close. The Nissan Leaf, I wouldn't say it's officially dead, but it's not that far from it. Sales have just continued to decline for good reason. It's like the electric Jaguar, that car that won World Car of the Year. They brought it out, and then after 5 years of being out, they did nothing to it. They changed a few color paint schemes and little trims and things, but they did absolutely nothing to the vehicle. And people started to realize there was much better options on the market, and they were cheaper, those better options. So why would you pay more money for something that's not a good option? That's what happened to Jaguar. Similar sort of thing has happened to the Nissan Leaf. The Leaf was a pretty compelling car 10 years ago, even though it didn't have very good thermal management. It was one of the few options available that was affordable. Very few options available that was affordable. That's no longer the case. For example, in America, you're better off getting a Bolt or a Bolt EUV. They're much more affordable for a similar product. And then look at other countries now. You've got companies like BYD entering those markets, MG, lots of different manufacturers, Volvo even making EVs. So now there's just so much choice. Nissan clearly are struggling with the competition. And since Carlos Ghosn had to abscond from the business, run away in a musical instrument case, I'm sure you're aware of that, the Japanese government put him under house arrest. The way he escaped from house arrest was to hide in a musical instrument case when they flew him out of Japan to safety in Lebanon. Anyway, he was the guy who pretty much made Nissan do the Nissan Leaf. You've got to admit he was quite forward thinking, well before its time. I mean, the Leaf really was a vehicle well before its time. But now Nissan have gone from that position of strength, where they were ahead of everyone else in a lot of aspects, to being behind. So Nissan Motors CEO Makoto Uchida said the market for electric vehicles is growing much faster than he anticipated in the United States. At the same time, he said Nissan would invest a further $250 million in its powertrain facility in Tennessee. This facility will support the electrification of the company's American lineup. Uchida did not provide a timeline for the $250 million investment or specify exactly what it will be used for. However, he said the investment is part of Nissan's increased efforts to promote electric vehicle adoption in the United States. Now, I don't think that Nissan's efforts to promote adoption is really the right move. In my opinion, the better move would be just to make more EVs, make more compelling EVs. Start by offering them with lithium iron phosphate batteries, for example. You can reduce the price. You can improve the customer experience because their battery will last longer and have less degradation. And then you can also, basically have less warranty recalls. Look at the warranty recalls we're seeing. About 90% of them worldwide on average are coming from lithium ternary batteries using nickel-based chemistry. Lithium iron phosphate batteries, yeah, they do fail sometimes, but they're generally a much better proposition when it comes to long-term reliability. Here's what he actually had to say. The world is accommodating EVs much faster than we thought in the past. You can say the same thing for every Japanese automaker. They're probably all thinking exactly the same thing. The electrification ratio in each market will probably grow faster than we thought, said Uchida. Uchida stated that the growing popularity of electric vehicles is being driven by an increase in competition, primarily from China, and the availability of more electric cars in the market. Now, Tesla already said he highlighted the role of regulations and government incentives in creating a favorable environment for the adoption of electric cars. To some degree, he was sort of saying, well, they've taken off mostly because of government incentives. Yes, incentives have played a part, but you've got to keep in mind, we had this discussion, but it's not a fair discussion. It's almost never a fair discussion because it's never an apples with apples discussion. I even see this, guys, on our Facebook group page sometimes. By the way, you can join that if you'd like to. I'll put a link in our description to our Facebook group. So yeah, you might as well click on that because sometimes stuff comes up. People post some really interesting stuff. We've got Clean Foss. We've got Paul Foss from Clean Technica who writes some great stuff there. Make sure you check that out. But I mean, people even say things like, oh, it's true that EVs are just taking off because they're getting incentivized. Well, how many trillions of dollars do you think incentivize the oil and gas industry? I mean, at what point are you going to say, well, yeah, okay, both industries are receiving funding, but when we hit that day, if it ever happens, where we can say, well, the amount of investment put into electrification, put into renewable energy, now equals the amount of investment put into fossil fuels. Well, when that happens, basically renewables will be at marginal cost, right? What Tony Seba talks about, that's what we'll be at. We're at the point where energy will be virtually free, electric cars will be unbelievably cheap. It's never going to happen. Yes, those things will happen eventually, but the amount of money invested into fossil fuels, into gasoline vehicles, into diesel vehicles, you got to remember, it's literally trillions of dollars. So we can't sit here and say, oh, the EV industry is only succeeding because of incentives. Then we could say exactly the same thing about diesel vehicles, about gasoline-powered vehicles, about the entire fossil fuel industry, which wouldn't be where it is today without the billions, trillions of dollars of incentives. So when I read these kinds of things, I think, you know what? Why are you changing the goalpost? Why is it fair for you to have this and not fair for the other side to have that? It doesn't seem like a reasonable thing to say, in my opinion. The IRA is maybe a challenge for us in the short term, said Nissan. But in the future, it will probably make for more penetration of the market by electric vehicles. Yeah, probably that's not true. $300 billion have been invested into electrification in the United States since the IRA was announced. My friends, there's no doubt that it will encourage insane amounts. It already has encouraged insane amounts of electric vehicle production in the US. It's going to bring down the price of electric cars massively. Nissan's planned investment in Desherd, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, American, sorry, is part of the company's efforts to establish a US-based EV production hub. The facility currently produces 1.4 million engines annually, as well as the electric motors used for the Nissan Leaf, the company's ubiquitous electric hatchback, which has, really struggled with sales over the past 12 months. Apparently, this new investment of $250 million will help the factory to significantly increase output. Now that's great, but this isn't really like General Motors with the Bolt and the Bolt EV. Now the Bolt and the Bolt EV, they're so cheap. If GM increases output by a factor of 5, I think they can sell all of them as long as their dealers just sell them at MSRP. You could sell 500,000 of those a year, no question. But the thing is, the Nissan Leaf isn't in that price bracket, right? I really don't see how increasing production is going to help them all that much, because the product itself is really probably the biggest challenge. The product and the price. They need to improve the product and the price, then improve the actual number of vehicles they're making. That's what I think anyhow. Let me know what you think on that in the comments. Nissan's current EV output globally is, well, it's a sign that this business is in trouble. I'm going to be talking about this at Fully Charged Live, but I believe Nissan is one of the most at-risk businesses in the automotive industry for bankruptcy over the next decade. Now, will they go bankrupt? Well, you got to remember, yes, some people are saying, well, the Japanese government will simply bail them out. But remember, Japan has more debt per capita than any other country in the world. And not only do they have more debt than any other country in the world, they have more debt than any country in the history of mankind. Plus, they have Toyota, which are the most indebted company in the history of mankind. Now, if Japan chooses to save Toyota, which I believe they will have to, will they then go, well, yeah, Nissan will save you too? Where are those funds going to come from? Will banks continue to lend to Japan? I'm really skeptical that that's going to happen. And that's where the problem is. If Nissan was, say, in a country all by itself, it was the country's only automaker, or let's say there was only 2 automakers in that country, then it might be in a position where it could be bailed out. But I think this problem is so big for the Japanese economy that they simply will not be able to save the majority of their automotive industry. This gives you an idea of just how bad the situation is. In 2022, Nissan delivered 12,000 Nissan Leafs. The Ariya, 200. That's a total of 12,200 EVs in 12 months. My friends, this is the tip of the iceberg. Unfortunately, it's too late for Nissan. That's what I think. Hopefully I'm wrong. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.